All right, this is Steve Schmidt, and this is the fourth edition of the Magnetic Podcast. We're calling it that for lack of a better term because we haven't named it yet. And we didn't just want to name it because nobody really cares yet anyways, but we want them to care. And if we keep having guests like we've had, and like the guy I've had on today, I bet you people will start caring in no time. And we're sort of using, and a lot of you are going to see the same methodology we use with our clients, which is, get 5 or 10 of these out before you go build your YouTube page, before, it's that bigger than life. And Adam J., who is our guest today, is absolutely going to make this seem bigger than life. Adam is a great practitioner. He is a great storyteller. And if you follow Adam on LinkedIn, he is the whole one time in Bandcamp, except it's in B2B. And so it's him typically saying, I talked to this founder, you'll never believe what I've heard. I'm guessing some of those conversations are all based off real life stories, and we get to hear more of those today. Adam J., welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be here, and I will lead with every one of those is a true and real story. I know there's people who make shit up. I am a genuine believer. I will change names and company names, but every single one is an actual conversation that we've had or I've had.
Which, they probably seem to those who don't know how crazy startup life can be. They may seem fake, but this is real life. Every day, I always say, like Adam, there's 3 days out of the week that seem normal, or 2 days that seem normal, and then 3 years.
Saturday and Sunday when we're not working.
Maybe those are that. Adam, you've been doing this for a bit. Like you've been a consultant kind of on this side while you were leading some bigger go-to-market teams. Now you've recently combined forces, and I want to talk about that a little bit today. You've been a strategic advisor to a lot of companies. You're also one of people's favorite LinkedIn follows. People speak very positively of you. And so that drives to your sense of community, which I know is very important to you. So why don't you tell everybody who's listening today a little bit about yourself and kind of how you've come up to that point where you're at today. Now, combining forces with Dale, with Revenue Reimagined, and really launching a full frontal attack on go-to-market consultancy in, my understanding, is Series A to Series C space. Is that correct?
Yeah, you nailed it. Series A to Series C. I think the only difference is we try to avoid the word consultancy. It has a bad connotation, right? People are like, oh, you're a consultant. You're just going to give me a playbook. We're operators. Similar to the way you work with, your companies, you don't just hand them a playbook and say, go build it. You're actually in the weeds building it and operating. First off, thank you for the kind words. That's a big reputation to live up to. I have spent the better part of 15 years in startups. It's like a drug. It's an addiction. I can't imagine ever going back and not working in startup land. But what I realized is that all of these startups face almost identical struggles, right? Who's our ICP? What's our buyer persona? What's our messaging? And God, we have to find product market fit or we have a problem. And there are very few people out there who know how to do this the right way. And I've been that VP of sales or CRO that gets hired, that gets pitched by a founder the same way they pitch an investor, and everything seems like gravy. Yeah. You go in and it's like, wait a minute, none of this is true. Maybe half of it is true, but I haven't been set up for success. And what I realized after my last full-time startup is if I can help founders scale their revenue motions, set up their full-time employees for success, decrease their dilution and increase their runway at scale, then I'm, going to be doing something that's pretty impactful. So it's kind of a one-to-many instead of a one-to-one approach. To your point, I've always done like a little bit of fractional stuff on the side, but about 6 months ago, I decided to go all in. Very fortunate. I was telling my wife, who probably going to be 90 to 120 days until we see some income. And we were prepared for that. All's well. And 30 days later, I eclipsed my full-time income as a W-2 employee. So I couldn't be happier. And I love the work that I do every day.
That's amazing. I think the perception too, I don't know what the perception is, but I've heard it from both sides where who said this in a post last week, Adam? It was really interesting. They said, most of the influencers on LinkedIn don't make as much money as you think they did. And I said, well, yeah, what do you think? I mean, also like the soup the soup that's advertised on the TV doesn't look like it does then too when I plop it out of the can at night. But at the end of the day, like they're influencers who are marketing typically themselves or other products, but in revenue, call that fractional revenue work, which this is an alignment of. I think that's where the higher pay is warranted because you're getting the share of someone's mind who's been there before. And there's a lot of benefit to that. There's also a lot of competition. The last year and a half, a lot of people came out of their jobs Now we've seen, unfortunately or fortunately, depending who you are, a lot of people try and get back into the workforce saying, wait, that was harder than I thought it was. Talk to me about that, because for you, it seems easy, yet talk to the next three people and they go, man, I got one client, then they fired me 3 months later. Next thing you know, I'm begging to get an AE job back at a SaaS company.
Yeah, it's not easy. First and foremost, I'm lucky, I'm fortunate. And I think the reason that I've seen success so quickly ties back to content, which we can, certainly speak about based on what the podcast is about. But it's not easy. It's hard work, it's different work, and you have to have kind of a North Star of my goal with every client is that at the end of our engagement, two things happen. Number one, revenue goes up and to the right. That's a must, right? That's why they're hiring you. Mm-hmm. But number two, if you're not willing to leave me a 5-star video testimonial that I could use on my website, I have not done my job right. And if you have that in your mind every day and you approach discovery calls like that, you approach engagements like that, you approach signed contracts like that, that's when the business, when they don't fire you in 3 months, when they extend with you and double down on the contract, when they refer you to other people. It's hard work. I work harder now than I've ever worked. Anyone who does this, who's like, oh, other than like Justin Welsh, who I have the immense amount of respect for, the OG of content, right?
Right.
But most people who are like, oh, it's easy. It's not easy at all. It's the hardest thing I've ever done.
And it should be, right? I mean, I think it's one of those things where if you're doing what you're doing, which is the operational and even the execution of it, right? That day-to-day operator is different than the strategy person who says, yeah, here's what you do. And then also think there's a distaste for the strategic only approach now, because there are people like you saying, hey, I'll do the work because someone wants to get it right. It may as well be us, right?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, listen, the strategy is a big part of it. And it's a large part of why companies hire us. But it's one thing to come in and say, here's the strategy, go do it, and I'll double check it, versus here's the strategy. I'm going to work with you in the trenches to make sure it works and to tweak it, adjust it, iterate upon it to make sure you have it right. Our goal, and we're in the process of building our website now, it's almost done, but our goal, and we call it out on the website, and we called it out in our newsletter this week, our goal is to turn ourselves out. Like, there's so many consultants that will slow walk stuff. And like, I want to be here. Like, my goal is to get you to extend after 6 months. Like, listen, if you want to extend in a lower capacity and you want us to help nurture, that's great. But if I haven't shown you enough value at arguably starting to see it at 90 days and definitely at the end of a 6-month engagement, that you're ready to churn me out from full time, then I'm taking advantage of you, as is anyone else who hasn't done that.
Yeah. I mean, 6 months is a very long time to see any dent in the revenue bucket. I mean, a sales cycle is 6 months long, usually for a very complex product.
Right.
And so to be paying someone a high level of money, which is where I think consultancy and cult the bad rap that you mentioned come up, right? Which is,
sure,
hey, I know people in the space, I'm a guru or whatever. Here's a playbook, take some of my knowledge, but I'm not going to show you how to do it. If you want me to show you how to do it, either I'm not willing to do that because maybe I never did do it.
Right, because I don't know how.
Yeah, that's a big reason. Or that's a lot of work, right? That's a lot of the kind of work that the guys like you and I think guys like you and I take joy in, which is maybe sitting and looking at the data, sitting and doing things that maybe aren't as required per the statement of work, but it's that little extra touch that's going to get that client to go, man, they make sure I know what's going on before I leave at Friday, or they set my team up for success on Monday, or I never have to remind them to do the work, because there's a lot of consultants out there. There's a lot of ghostwriters, I think, and we're going to transition into that writing part and the content really quickly. But I've seen it where they, they're sort of committing to something and then they're quiet, right? And then you go, where's the post? And they go, they'll be up tonight. And really they're, maybe they're a person with a laptop and they found 4 or 5 clients who can pay them 2 to 3, whatever it is. It equals enough money to make a living off of. I sort of say, well, that's where you get market pricing, right? So they establish the benchmark for medium. So if you want to expect that kind of service, now that's the mid-market. Now, if you want to get these on a very timely, very accurate insights and analytics around your posts, oh, by the way, you want them to actually drive to revenue? Yeah, you're going to pay for that because everything else is awareness, and that's nice. But as you and I both know, you can work for a company who has a great idea, a great concept. Man, we walk in the interview, we might even take the job. And then we get there and we go,
We do.
whoa,
I've been there. I've taken
yeah,
the job, Steve.
we do take the job. Yeah. We've both been there. We take the job and it looks a lot different, like way different on the inside. Not just like,
Yeah.
oh, startup different. Like, whoa, wait a second. This product isn't even close to what we said
Real.
we could do. Therefore, no matter how we market this, it wouldn't matter if we sold it because we can't do it anyways. Therefore, good luck getting any client testimonial, right? So that's always where, and I want to talk about that one today because that's the biggest lacking piece of content for any startup. Show me client testimonials. Go on the website, give me 2 or 3 credible companies. Don't give me quotes on your website, right? So we'll table that and come back to that because I think
the quotes from a sales leader at a Series A company.
Yeah, or
that mean nothing. Yeah.
Or their friends who work at Amazon, their friends who work at Tesla and all these companies who you're like, but that's not even your ICP. We'll table that too, because I think there's so much of that that's now people have seen the bullshit enough to know it's kind of like, even if, let's say you're a startup. Okay, Adam, had a great meeting with you. You went out cold to me. I'm now following you on LinkedIn. I'm going to see some cool stuff. But yeah, I mean, who else can I talk to who's like me, who you have solved this problem for? And I think that's the big lacking part for a lot of startups because they can't say anybody. And the people that they have sold to maybe didn't have the best experience, but people need that proof. I'm going to back up to your own content journey, back up to the first time you started making content. Before we dig into the proof rabbit hole, what was your first content like, Adam, as a content creator? And when did you start posting, call it consistently?
So it's funny. I still don't consider myself a content creator. I am, like, if I think about it, but like when I hear content creator, like I'm thinking of people who have 70, 80, 150,000 followers. I don't look at it as that. And maybe I should. But to answer your question, I started on LinkedIn like everyone. And originally it was just like, I think I was actually looking for jobs. Like, I think that's the same reason we all went to LinkedIn originally, right? It was like the job platform.
Yeah.
And I saw folks like Sarah Brazier rings out to me. You know, she was putting some great content out there. Chris Orlob was putting some great content out there. It was arguably Gong that made me think like, wow, this platform can be used for something. And I started posting very erratically and with no consistency about topic. Like one day it would be sales, one day it would be leadership, one day it would be founder-led sales, one day it would be a picture of my kid. But people like started engaging, and like it to me, and my wife yells at me for this, like it's a drug. Like I love the engagement, not in the sense of vanity metric. Oh, wow, people are like listening to me, in the sense of like I'm helping people.
Yeah.
I try to make it a point to always like actively engage with those who engage with my post. And the best thing for me is when someone sends me a message and is like, hey, like what you posted really resonated and helped me. That's all it is. So like, I don't look at myself as a content creator. I look at myself as like, I post real stories of things that I've dealt with and how I've helped either myself or others overcome them. And if that could help others, that's a win. If I could generate some business because of it, that's a double win.
Yeah. You just shared something I wish more people knew, which was the feeling that you get as someone who, quote unquote, has influence, right? When somebody who most of the time, if not all the time, doesn't have the decision maker title comes up to you and says, hey, you changed my life. You got me off plan. You got me on an SDR to an AE. You convinced me to start my own company. Those are the moments, I think, the non-check related moments that matter the most to me, and it's to you, and go down the list of all of them, right? We want the income to survive, and sure, a lot of it's great. Sure. It also means that we're doing a good job, but also, man, that's so important. What you just mentioned is not just for those to say like, oh, hey, like, you know, influencers need love too, but just don't be afraid to reach out to them and give them positive feedback. Don't think that necessarily they live in this place that doesn't exist, because most of them will respond to you. Not everybody's as friendly as Adam J, but that's nearly impossible to be that person, because everybody you meet who talks about Adam J has something good to say about Adam J. So that's,
I mean, we're exaggerating a little bit. Like I've definitely made my enemies, but I just try to be real and be a good person. Like I believe very strongly. And the funny thing, and you were just talking about this, and it's true. Most influencers are content creators. Most, there are some who don't, believe very strongly in giving more than they get. And that's something I hold near and dear to my heart, right? Like I'm blessed. I live a great life, man. I live in a nice house. I have a beautiful wife, a wonderful kid, a great dog, a nice car. Like I live a good life. And what does that mean? That means I need to give back, whether that's money, whether that's time, whether that's information, whatever it is. I recognize that I'm privileged. And if I could help people through knowledge or time, like I give away time every week too. We all should be doing that. And what I found is most influencers that I've reached out to or spoken to asking for advice or help or guidance are willing to do that. People who you would think would never give you half an hour because, oh my God, they have 200,000 followers and they're not going to give me time. Like it might not be this week, but they'll certainly be like, hey man, like I have time the third week of October. Like if you want 20 minutes, grab it. Happy to help you.
Yeah.
People want to help people.
Innately they do. And I think that's, and people like the sense of community too. It doesn't feel good when you're not a part of one you want to be a part of. And I think it's easy for people be in the early to mid stage of their careers who kind of look at it and go, I mean, what's all the noise? Like, why are these people talking about themselves? You know, why are they so braggadocious? And I think that's sort of the look on and the fear of when people start to say, well, hey, you got to create content. They're like, hey, listen, man, I'm just doing this as a job. Like, I'm just an AE. I don't need to go be a founder. Like, why would I possibly want to create content? I just want to hit quota. And there's the secret sauce.
I could give you a million reasons why you want to create content.
Yeah. So break apart Johnny AE for me, who I just described. Why would Johnny AE say, why the heck would I need to do this, Adam? It's just not for me.
I'll tell you why. Because Johnny AE is going to be in a position one day, and it might not be at this company, it might be the next company, where someone is sitting in a boardroom and looking at a spreadsheet because Johnny AE lives in startup land and the startup isn't doing as well as it needs to be. And Johnny AE is going to lose his position. And Johnny AE only posts about his company and how great his company is and nothing about his learnings, his process, what he does to stand out, what's made him successful, how he could help others. And Johnny AE has no network now, has no content, has no brand, and is going to have a very difficult time finding a job. Whereas if Johnny AE builds his brand, shares his knowledge, shares his process, and starts sharing content about what's made him successful, what he enjoys, what makes him stand out. Johnny AE now has a brand that when he posts that he's been laid off, his however many thousand followers are now going to help him. There is someone, and I won't use names, but there's someone who you and I are both connected to who lost their job the other week. They're fairly well known on LinkedIn. Some people like them, and candidly, some people really dislike this person. Very, very strong personality. Posted that they lost their role. And I'm telling you, within 7 days, because I spoke to this person this morning, they started their new job this morning. That doesn't happen without a brand, certainly in one of the toughest job markets that are out there right now. It's because of his content.
Content lives on. It's also the thing that control is not the best thing for people who create content, because maybe you are an AE and cold calls and emails or your network or whatever is the way that you've sold traditionally. I think also to your point, it's the network that you're building that can come with you, because it also is wise and sage advice that was given to me once. It says, hey, if you're going to create content, you may as well think about doing it in the vertical that you know, like, hey, I love this vertical, right? Instead of, hey, I'll give you an example. I'll just throw a company out there. I'm doing enterprise sales for SAP, right? But maybe I'm going to go sell some sales tech in a year, right? Yeah. So if I'm educating an enterprise commercial software audience, but yet I go and suddenly I join this great startup, and now my audience is Series A founders. And on the other side of that, maybe you shouldn't hire that person who doesn't have the network on LinkedIn, right? That's a whole complex conversation of like, talk me through that. Like, do you have founders who, when they come to you and say, hey, we got to hire this person? And then you go, great, give me their resume. And you go to their LinkedIn and they have 1,000 connections and they have nothing there. Do you go, oof?
It depends on who your ICP is. So I have a customer right now. They're one of the largest printing companies in Canada, trying to expand into the US. And like their clients don't live on LinkedIn, nor do those AEs. So like when I was trying to recruit for them, like I'm firing up LinkedIn and I'm like, no one's responding to me. This person has 50 followers and has never posted. So in that scenario, don't care. In true B2B SaaS, when you're, selling to people who live on LinkedIn all day, I would have tremendous pause about someone who's not leveraging the tool properly to help their business. Tremendous, tremendous pause. And you have to speak to your audience. Like you hit on it. My ICP is founders of Series A to Series C startups. If 85% or more of my posts don't speak to that demographic, I have no credibility. Now, listen, I love coaching. I love helping managers turn into leaders and helping reps become managers. But like, if that's all I post about, I have no credibility with founders.
Yeah.
You have to speak to your audience.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Peel back this segment. So what percentage of, and this is an exercise we bring our clients through on a weekly basis, right? The percentage of
I'm going to fail.
of ICP within each post, right? Because you can now tear it down and go, hey, how did your post perform? And we look for consistency within the ICP, not the specific post, but do you know sort of your audience breakdown? How much of your core ICP is your audience, right? So how many followers do you have, Adam?
Just under 14,000 right now.
14,000. How many of those
Not
are
enough.
People who could buy from you?
50% at least.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good because most people would have a network of 50,000 and wouldn't have that, right? Because I think that's and a lot of that can be due with.
I scrape my followers.
Yeah.
Like it's going out of style. When I look at my follower growth, and I check this every morning, not to see how many new followers I have, to see of my new followers, what percentage of those are founders. I was just talking to Dale about this morning because if they're not listen, I want to help everyone. And I love that AEs and business owners and I had a baker follow me this morning. I love it. But if most of the people who I'm growing with are not in my ICP, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
You have to look at that. Like every day is probably a stretch, but you have to look at that often. Are your connections who you want them to be? I was coaching a founder the other day and we were looking, she's like, I have so much engagement on my post and this is great. And like, I got 127 likes. Well, great. Let's go in and look at those likes and look at the ICP and look who's liking your posts.
Yeah.
It wasn't 127 people who could buy the product. I promise you that. It wasn't 10 people who could buy the product.
There's this interesting point I found, and this is the part where no software can do this for you. Anybody can go buy automation software. Actually encourage it. Just go for the connect only. Like just make that happen automatically. Dump your ICP in there, revisit it often. But to me, it's when they start coming to you and following you is when you start to see success. People always say, well, when do you start to succeed? I said to a client, when you get someone who we did not reach out to, who's in your ICP, who follows us, that's when we ring the bell. And now we got to go chase the revenue, right? But they heard about you from someone else, and that's when we start winning. And that's when I saw it personally. Would you agree, for those listening, Adam, or what is your personal journey with that? Like, was it when people started coming to you and startup founders and your ICP started following you is when you started to see, quote unquote, that income replace your salary?
100%. This is a horrible thing to say. We don't outbound. We don't do it at all. Dale and I have not made one single outbound cold call to anyone. The business comes from inbound and referral. And that's when you start seeing, and don't get me wrong, everyone should outbound. I'm not proud that I don't. We just don't. But when you have people in your ICP who come to you and are like, hey, so-and-so told me to follow you, or so-and-so told me to talk to you, or so-and-so who I follow, commented on your post and it led me down this rabbit hole. And, I started looking at your content and I'm really interested in it. That to me is how you know you're doing something right.
Yeah. I've also heard all this talk, right, in SaaS land about how events aren't producing ROI. And I go, let's go find out. I said, let's go to SaaStr. And we're going to spend around $2,500, and we're going to write content about it because that's what we do, right? Yep. And we're going to do screenshots from our CRM because that's as close to the truth you can get without the bank slip showing it, right? And I'm not going to show that just because, for a lot of reasons. Most importantly, I just went through a divorce 7 months ago. It's a bad idea to share your income online. I've learned that. So you won't hear me talking about any amount of money or revenue run rates anytime soon. Oh, sorry, I had to get that joke. She would think that's funny.
Been there, done that, my friend.
She would think that's very funny too. What's up, Melissa, if you're listening? But breaking it down, it's interesting because we Had somebody who came to us right before that event say, hey, we're going to be at the event. And we said, Ron, we really got to go now. Pretty big contract up in Canada for us to go get, but they came in inbound. And when he came in, my last message to him was 2020 when I auto connected with him in LinkedIn, and has been following since, and came back, says, and his message was, hey, I give up. I surrender. I've been following you for 2 years. And I kind of laughed because I was like, man, this is the feeling that you're talking about, that rush of like, it's not the closing the deal. You're like, it worked. And for me, it's like the thing we're trying to sell to people is working for us. And therefore we go, this is the feeling, guys. Like when this happens, and it starts to happen around month 4, like that's when you get really, really excited.
And what you just said, it starts to happen on month 4. It doesn't happen in week 1. It doesn't happen in week 2. Like it is a slow burn.
Yeah, it is a very slow burn. But because of the content, we went to the event and were able to, through today, it's about $30,000 signed, and we have another 50 to 60 out the door. So we're like, well, wait a second. If we can go spend $2,500, no booth, no nothing, no after parties, we can pull out $100,000 from people in a bad economy. What are we doing that's different than everybody else? Oh, wait a second. We didn't meet those people for the first time. We didn't meet them for the first time on the discovery call. We met them for the first time 2 years ago, 3 years ago, before we ever met them. And I think that's the part that if 100%. I could say, gosh, Adam, if those people who are listening could feel that, and you felt that, they would go, okay, I'm a believer. But they're not yet for themselves. They look at it like, sure you do, Adam, right?
It's funny. I've had founders ask me something very similar. Like, references are great, testimonials are great. A lot of founders are even skeptical of those. Like, oh, you're just paying this person to say you're good, or you know, whatever. To your point, like I'm certainly not going to go show bank statements either, but I'm happy to let anyone dig into my CRM. Like, I'll remove the dollar values, but like, come look for yourself. Like, I don't have enough time to fake closed won deals in HubSpot. Like, I can't do that. But it is, if I look at the clients we're working with now, only one of them happened to like find me somewhere recently that was like, hey, like I found you, I interviewed 3 people and I like you. Most of them are, I've been following you for 2 years. I saw your first post 18 months ago. Someone, that I'm close with told me to go look at your content, and I went back 1.5 years into your content. Content lives on forever. Yeah. And even if you think you delete it, you haven't, I promise. Those are the ones that I like.
They're bought in, right? Because they're here now. They share your point of view, if not most of it. And you don't need to sell them on, call it your concepts or your way of thinking, right, Adam? And you do a great job, and I want to dive into this right now, on telling stories. I'm imagining that is intentional because you're no dummy, although you say you're not a creator. Like, telling stories is proof. And proof surfaces pain, right? Because when we hear a story, we go, ooh, me too, right? And that's maybe the burn that they come in and go, hey, I've been following you for 1.5 years. And today's article kind of spoke to me. Walk me through sort of your choice to tell stories, and also to add visuals to those, because every little choice is a choice, right? And I'm sure you're testing those things too.
So I'll start with the visuals. Props to Drew Bruckner, who used to work at Lasso. He is the Midjourney king. I'd always seen such great visuals, and I'm like, wow, I want to learn how to do that. I don't buy a lot of courses online. I bought his Midjourney course, and while I'm not amazing at it, I could create some pretty good visuals. And I did some A/B testing of posts with images and without. The ones with images perform 10 times better. My best post ever, I got 724 followers in 1 day, 30% from my ICP. And it was all like, and they told, like, it was the visual that drew them in. Like, there was it, no doubt. But telling stories is super intentional. And listen, I'm a sales leader at heart, right? Like, we could say CRO, GTM, whatever, but at the end of the day, like, I'm a seller, and I don't ever forget that. I still love to sell. I love to close. I love to coach. And people buy when they could relate to what you're saying, to what you're selling. Sales is the transference of my feelings onto you and getting you to believe in what I'm saying. The only way to do that is for you to feel the pain, to feel as if what I'm saying is so deeply personal to you that you can close your eyes and picture yourself in that situation. So when I'm writing a post about, the founder I spoke with last week, who was told by her board to go hire a VP of sales. So she hired the VP of sales and nothing changed.
Yeah.
any other founder that is looking at that could close their eyes and be like, I've had this conversation with my board. I almost did this. Fuck, I'm glad I didn't, because I would be right here, right now, feeling this. Yeah. That's what gets people to not only want to do business with me, but to engage, to think about it. And listen, whether you do business with me or not, if my post painting that picture prevents you from pulling that trigger, and you never work with me, right? I never get a dime of your money, but you didn't make that mistake, you extended your runway and you decreased your dilution, that is a win. The posts that I'm drawn to most on LinkedIn are the posts where people are telling stories.
Not giving you their 6-step go-to-market playbook.
No, right. Like I listen, there's someone out there who did just that. It's funny, but yeah, I don't care about a post that's like, here's the 27 steps to a cold call. Now, let's talk about, here's, I went to make a cold call the other day and I got on the phone and said this, and immediately the prospect was drawn in and wanted to talk to me, and it led to a half-hour conversation. This is how I did it. That's very different than here's the 27 steps to a successful cold call. They both say the same damn thing. Yeah. You got to frame it right.
Well, and I also want to remind everybody, through testing, I've learned this is nobody's going to print your carousel off and go do it, right? So like, who's going to scroll through LinkedIn, stop, save your article, go get the printer.
You make some pretty damn good carousels though.
Well, thanks.
I like your carousels.
They're meant, we learn over time that it's really like, okay, do you have 20 seconds to make an impact? Not do you have something that someone can look at and then go learn how to do, like an arts and craft. It's like, nope.
I mean, I saw a 96-page carousel the other day. I didn't click through 96 page. And in fact, the second I saw it was 96 pages, I was done. Like I wouldn't go any further. Whereas if I see it's 8 pages of impact, I'll look through 8 pages of impact.
That's a big
96 pages.
That seems
right. How long did it take the person to do that? Even if you are using AI, like that's time.
It's a lot of time. And I don't think that we understand fully what we're doing yet, because I can tell you that until like 2 weeks ago, I don't feel like I got a really good grasp on what a carousel should do that actually elicits buying behavior. Not what I think of it, not what you think of it, what data says motivates buying behaviors. And a carousel is a reminder. A carousel is a pain evoker, but it's not, as much as we want to make it a call to action piece. To your point, call to actions happen in stories, right? That's when people are motivated to do something, is when they can see themselves. Nobody can see themselves in a carousel because that's very planned out, right? And it's very much like, I'm just like, here's the best carousel ever written, Adam. Sunday morning, I get up, I click on the local newspaper, and it starts, all of a sudden I'm reading the newspaper, probably the sports section, and it said, want to know what happened to the man by the river with the dog? And I'm like, oh yeah, I do. And so I click on it and it goes, there was a man. He walked down by the river. Click next. It wasn't what you thought. And I'm like, what was it? And then 28 later, you're like, and it wasn't a dog. It was a jacket that was rolled up and looked like a dog. And I'm like, I just took 3 minutes out of my life, but I was fully engaged.
100%.
And the advertisers on the outside were the ones hoping to gain my viewership of that carousel piece. So I've learned too, that a lot of us are doing things because nobody's telling us how to do it, right? We're all sort of struggling in this together. Nobody's printed, as much as we want to think we have, the perfect LinkedIn manual, because there is no such thing, Adam. Talk to me about, to me, the most impactful part about content. When revenue comes in as a part of it. Talk to me about what's happened for your business, because my guess is that's the majority of the revenue. But then let's peel to your client's business, because I'm assuming that when you're looking at their existing everything, part of that is going to be their sales messaging, i.e. that's content, their persona breakdown, big part of, call it the content engine. And they probably have some social media posts, or maybe they don't. So walk me through your company and then your client's company, because I think a lot of people want to know, well, that's great, Adam, but then walk me through someone who's in the print industry, because that's a totally different game, for example, right?
It is. And, it's funny when people think ICP or buyer personas or even sales messaging, that's not what people think of when they think content. When you say the word content, most people are thinking maybe my website, that's probably content, probably, YouTube videos. But I don't think most people are thinking content is every bit of messaging. Everything that goes in front of a prospect or a client is content, no matter how you slice it or dice it. For us, we made a fundamental shift. So I left full-time operating back in April, started my own company, very creative name, Adam J Consulting, was doing it for a month or two when Dale and I decided to bring our businesses together. It made a fundamental shift of creating a content calendar.
Yep.
What are we going to talk about on certain days and how do we balance each other? The podcast for us is a big part of our content and drives a lot of our business.
Yep.
But we're very deliberate in what we post about and making sure, number one, that we're telling stories. Number two, that it's speaking to our ICP. And number three, that every single post has a call to action. I don't want to say people are not smart because that's not true. People don't know what you want them to do.
Yep.
You cannot make a post and assume that someone knows that you want them to reach out to you because of that post.
Right.
You have to say it. And it's not ending the post with, if you'd like to spend $20,000 a month and improve your sales, please reach out to me. That's not the post.
Yep.
That's not the call to action. If you'd like to learn more, drop me a DM. It could be super simple. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I played with, and it's funny, it didn't resonate. I played with book your free strategy call.
Yep.
It didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So we went away from it. But when the revenue comes in, and we're pretty OCD about tracking where our leads come in from, and it's from a LinkedIn post or it's from a podcast episode, the first thing I do is go back to that, mark it, and figure out how the hell I could replicate it because it clearly resonated with someone. And I encourage my clients to do the same. I'll pause there because I don't want to monopolize the conversation before I switch to like how we work with clients.
What you just, well, it's they've all heard from me. I think this is the nice part about guests is because I'm learning from you, right? It wasn't planned that we're going to talk on content being successful. Although I would say, I don't know a lot of people right now that are saying content isn't working, right? There are a lot of people saying cold calls aren't working, emails aren't working, and those also aren't true.
Well, that's because of the content that you're using.
Thank you. Let's go back up the engine, right?
Is content, folks.
Yeah. So even someone said, "Oh no, before the good content strategy, you need a really good product strategy." I said, "Actually, no." Because have you ever watched the Steve Jobs movie? No, you can invent things before you have a thing and sell the thing. And as a matter of fact, a lot of
startups do.
Thank you. B2C, especially B2C, consumer, flipping it over to call it startups on the B2C side, absolutely pre-sell everything. I don't know the last time you've bought something, it took 3 months to get there, but it happens to me often. Somebody who's maybe selling a new clothing
even B2B
line.
creators do it. How many B2B creators will pre-launch a course? And here's the secret for everyone. They're pre-launching the course and telling you you're getting the pre-launch discount. Guess what, folks? The course isn't built. They're waiting to see if they get enough people who are paying for it, and then they will build it based on the demand. And I don't have a problem with it. Why am I going to spend 40 hours building something if it's not what people want? But it happens in startup land a lot. You would be surprised, and there's a barrier of how much of this is acceptable versus isn't. But you would be surprised how much you see that is really Figma and is not a real product until there's a paying customer to fund the eng hours to build the product.
Oh, I love that question. Hey, sales team, next time you have your discovery meetings, just ask people, what if we could do this? Would you? Because salespeople interpret that as, we just got a product release. I'm going to go sell it no matter what. I mean, shit, I'm telling you, I've carried a quota. I've done that as a salesperson every time I have a quota because we got to close.
We all sell off the roadmap.
Now, here's what you can't do. And this is what I've learned the hard way is content, different story. If I'm telling you something on the internet and it's stored in Foreverville, you can now reference Foreverville and use it against me. Yeah. You said you can do this. 100%. You said that. You said this. Now, it's been used against me 3 or 4 times, I'd say in 2.5 years. First time, got defensive, right? Second time, accepted it. Third time, didn't like it because I accepted it. But I was like, wait a second, we're saying something we're not doing. Fourth time, realized because of that, I'm going to start my own company without 50 employees because I tend to be someone who thinks of things, says it, and then does it all in the same day. And so it's easy for me to go, I woke up with an A/B test in my head. I'm going to do it because I own the company. I can. Number 2, I own the software in the company. I can. And 3, I own the data in the company. So when you own your own company, you can do a lot of shit other people can't.
Yep.
Because you can raise your 100%. Hand any day and go run an experiment.
Yep.
You can share your CRM. I don't think if you worked at SAP, sharing your CRM would be a great idea. I'm peeling that all the way back to this really important question I have, though, is, the ability for people to storytell is great. The ability for people to have themselves describing this is great. I would say the one thing that's missing when I go look at LinkedIn content, and I'm not sure we want to see this, but it sure don't see a lot of clients on behalf of commenting. I don't see their testimonials on their websites. I don't see it on their LinkedIn. I don't see their comments being like, and we're a loyal customer and we love that. And so I think that's where a lot of people kind of call BS. But also a lot of companies have to be careful, because community can really be a beautiful thing when it happens, where organic conversations are happening with your prospects, with your customers. So walk me through that, sort of this idea that their content creation is now hitting this peak, kind of peak momentum, at least for now. A lot of people are using it, but we also now have to be accountable for the things that we say, because like you pointed out earlier, everything on the internet lasts forever. So what advice would you have for those people who are creating it? How creative should they be versus realistic when they're talking about these stories or their capabilities?
Yeah, I think, the overarching principle is don't lie. Be honest. Being creative doesn't mean lying. Telling stories doesn't mean lying. I think that listen, everyone embellishes. There's not a doubt in my mind. Like, you see, was speaking with the founder of a $2 million company. Was it $2 million? Was it 1.5? Maybe it was 2.6. Like, and a lot of that is also done to protect clients' anonymity, right? Like, if I were to put, I was speaking with a, female founder of a sub $1 million company in the revenue intelligence, like, everyone's going to know who I'm talking about. Yep. So you have to be a little creative there. But I think, to me, be true to yourself, be honest, but use your creative chops, have a little fun, make people want to engage, but don't ever put something out there where someone could come back through data, because everything's on the internet, and say, you lied.
Yep.
Because the second you have that, it only takes once. You are done. And you have to remember that, not just, we talk about creating content, but every time you comment, every time you interact, every time you engage, that is also content.
Yep.
And you have to be careful with what you say and how you say it. And I'm not telling anyone not to be their authentic selves. In fact, the opposite. But just abide by what I call the general principle that's always been my hiring principle in life of, like, don't be an asshole. No one wants that. There's lots of people who've said lots of things that I may or may not agree with on various LinkedIn posts of mine or others. I'm all for a healthy debate when it's done with professionalism and courtesy. Don't be an a-hole.
Yeah. Well, because like you said, now that's your content. And there is room in the world for a-holes. And I kind of like them sometimes. Trolls make it interesting. They can make it painful. To some of the advice I've given to those people. I mean, I'm pretty early in this thing. I mean, I think I've got some things figured out, but I mean, I've only been doing this for 2.5, 3 years. I just said, if you're willing to make bold claims, have thick skin. That's it. Because Adam and I, you've talked about this, but I was talking about different stuff a year and a half ago on the internet. I mean, it was at this peak of, like, when you said, like, a drug, man. Oh, wow. Like, all the momentum, almost leads every day. Like, you're like, can I do no wrong? Wow. And really, to distill that down, someone said, well, why do you think that happened? I said, well, let's look at the factors in that. And this will help people listening to content. The space was online, but nobody else in the space was posting online, right? So pretty rare, right? Lead gen, also not people who normally would want to post online. Most lead gen firms are like, people with mullets in the back of mini malls. Like, let's be honest, like, I'm just telling you how it is. Like, that is the majority of them would go, what do you mean LinkedIn? Like, we're making cold calls. Like, we're really a telemarketing firm. I think also being a little bit, I don't want to say contrarian, but being a loud voice in this space maybe helped, but then it hurt as much as it helped. And then also being in a space where I'm kind of going to point one, the people who could buy from me were online. They were in Pavilion. They were in Slack groups. They were in WhatsApp groups. They were all over the place. So dark social came to proof very quickly. As a matter of fact, people would, like you said, Adam, say, oh, it was this post. Someone gave me a screenshot of this. And all it took was a screenshot. So they didn't need to be a follower. one of your followers would screenshot it. Adam, talk to me about, as we got one more question after this. Dark social. So you've sold via social. Has someone come inbound to you via dark social? And real quick for our audience, defining dark social, a term that's about 32 years old, but Chris Walker recently resurfaced. It is an original term from a book. Pretty sure Chris took credit for it, but further research says no, this is a marketing term that has been around for a long time. Dark social is Adam finds out about something. He comes inbound to a company. They have no idea to get there because it's not something they can track on the internet. And B2B companies are obsessed with tracking, where did Adam come from? His entire journey, step by step.
The answer is yes. I think anyone who tells you no is wrong. You can't track everything 100%.
Yeah.
I had and the easiest one, like I could think of one that actually just came across today. Like I had someone reach out to me specifically for coaching, and it's like my side hustle to my real hustle, right? I still love doing it. I've never seen this person before. I maybe they interacted with something on LinkedIn, certainly not enough that I would have known it. I checked my LinkedIn. We are not connected. They are not following me. They came from somewhere. Where? No effing clue.
Probably dark social. Well, before dark social, they came from somewhere. And so, I mean, what Adam's saying at a high level is if you're a content creator or someone who wants to be, and I would say that this for me is true. I don't oftentimes ever have the buyers ever engage on the post. They don't like things. They don't react to it. They don't comment on it. Typically,
Yeah.
when they come in is the first time I've ever seen their name or face, and maybe you're connected to them. But that's really the mystery of this thing, right, Adam? Because I think most people go, oh, it's the people. It's the, I got to be deep in my ICP. Yes. You've got to be in the, yes, you got to have good messaging. Yes. You've got to have really good messaging. Yeah. I got to stand out. Yes. You have to stand out. Oh, and then you want me to do more? You want me to post daily? And what would your advice be for people who go, I need to know how to do this well, so don't take it easy on me. Like if I want to make a living on this, Adam, in your words, not Magnetics or mine, as the last question here, I want them to hear from you. What is your advice to them? Again, they want to make money off this. They want to make it, they might make an impact. What is the sort of schedule and rigor they need as a content creator, whether you like that or not? Because we're going to use that term, and I'm 46 years old, so we're going to get hip with it. What is the advice you're going to give to them? How much work, how much time, how much, call it money? Because it takes all of it.
A lot of time. If you want to do it right, it's a lot of time. Because here's the mistake people make. They think that you could pop on LinkedIn for 5 minutes in the morning, put a post up, be done. Don't engage. Don't engage with your stuff. Don't engage with anyone else's, and the business is just going to come to you. Not going to happen, my friends. To do it right, there's a few things you need to do. Number one, you need to post every single day. There are mixed trains of thoughts about whether you should post once a day or twice a day. I used to do twice a day. I have found for me personally, and trust me, the algo is different for everyone. For me personally, my posts do better. One a day. I actually get most of my traction later in the day. So like there's people I know who will post something and Steve, you and I have spoken about this. Like it's what you get in that first 100 views, right?
Yeah.
Mine is the opposite. I will see very little in that first 100 views, but if I check it 3 or 4 hours later, I've gotten 3, 5, 6, 7, 10,000 impressions. It's very weird. So for me, it's once a day. But I think that you also can't forget that it's a two-way street. And that means interacting with the folks who interact with you, right? Mm-hmm. So this part of the algo is true, especially within that first hour. If someone comments, you best comment back. You got to nurture and engage in those conversations. That's what gets your post up there.
Yep.
But you have to do that throughout the day. If you just do it within the hour, people are going to realize real quick that you're not authentic and you're just doing it to boost the algo. Yeah. I go back several times a day and engage with those who engage with me.
Yep.
And then the biggest thing is engage with other people's posts. Again, give more than you get. Make sure that it's insightful engagement, not just giving a like or saying, ooh, it sounds cool. Like actually have some conversation. I probably spend 2 to 2.5 hours a day on LinkedIn on a good day. It could be more than that. It's a lot of time. Money? I mean, time is money. I think it depends on how much you want to automate or not automate, what tools you want to use. I use one LinkedIn tool and one LinkedIn tool only, and it's authored up. I use it for the analytics, and I do store all my drafts in there. I do not schedule my posts. I am OCD about what time I post because I know that it works better for me. But the short answer is you have to find what works for you. It's not a post, spend 5 minutes on LinkedIn and be done to get any value out of it. It takes work and effort.
Something else I would add to that, and thank you, is people will change. The people who maybe are the heaviest contributors, call it the heaviest, and really the people you should value the most, and like really as people value them, they move on. They kind of, maybe not all of them, but most of them might get what they need from Adam J and move on, right? Because they now are at a different stage in their career. And maybe they still see his posts every day and they still go, oh man, right? But this is like the harsh reality for me was learning this. And someone says, your following will come in seasons. You'll have different groups of them. Right. And so
absolutely,
I thought that was really interesting because it's like, even if you have a bad season, some people call it a slump, right? Well, look at what you were writing, right? Look at maybe your mindset, maybe look at the place in life you were in. Like, what were you actually writing and was it making an impact? Because it doesn't mean because it was bad, it can't be good tomorrow. And to your point is maybe it's just setting the alarm for a half hour earlier in the morning to get up and be active with comments. I can guarantee you are correct, because when I've been less active commenting, busy head down in the books, stuff doesn't land as well. And so for me, it takes scheduling that, not because I don't want to, just because 9 hours a day I'm working on other people's LinkedIn stuff, not surfing LinkedIn or not working on my own. And then I kind of miss the world of LinkedIn because I'm like, I'm only thinking about selfishly my client's view. So like I'm resurfacing some good thoughts here, Adam, just because a lot of people would say, well, the money might come in if, number one, oh, I don't have time to write it. He said, great, go get a ghostwriter. Number two, oh, I don't have any time to comment. Go get an SDR to just manage your freaking LinkedIn to comment on stuff and get your voice. And if that's what it takes, like that's where your next budgeted headcount should go, not to someone who's maybe got a 30% chance to make an impact. So I think a lot 100%. Of these things are all up for consideration and none of us have a best playbook on it. Otherwise we'd be doing that. So Adam, thank you for all of your feedback and we could go on and just know that Adam J is going to tell you where he can be found, and you're going to want to follow him and see some of these stories coming out on a daily basis in the afternoon, because Adam obsesses over that, which I quite frankly, I love that. Adam, where can our listeners find you? What platform is the easiest for them to, and go ahead and give them that information.
Yeah. So LinkedIn, go figure. You can find me on LinkedIn. There are multiple Adam J's. So it's Adam B as in boy, Jay. Also revenue-reimagined.com and the Revenue Reimagined podcast. Best place to find me.
Adam, thank you. It's so good to talk to you. Actually, Adam and I started our businesses the same month, called Left Our Corporate Jobs the same month. So it was really cool because we both said, good luck. I knew he'd do great. Here we are 6 months later. So far, so good, Adam. So it's cool to kind of look back and say, hey, 6 months feels like a long time. And it also feels like just yesterday.
Yeah, man.
Glad to see you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.